Hey, pro organizers, it is Melissa. And I just want to start out with a quick funny story, or I find it funny. So I am re recording this opening, but when I originally recorded it, when I put things into my podcast software, it transcribes it automatically. And when I said, hey, pro organizers, the first time, it transcribed as, hey, bro organizers. And I put that on my social media, and several people thought it was funny. But as I was deleting that to re record this, it came up again as, hey, bro organizers. And I'm like, now I'm just laughing about thinking about bro organizers. Maybe that's a niche that someone wants to explore. But I am thrilled to be with either pro or bro organizers on this podcast. Today, I am talking to my friend, Sarah Brent of Practical Harmony in Illinois. And we actually recorded this quite a while ago. I have been waiting for the perfect time for it to come out, and this week is the perfect time in my mind for it to come out. And if you listen to last week's podcast with myself and the founder of Pro Organizer Studio, Jen Kilborn, by the way, if you listen to the whole thing, great job hanging in there. I know it was a long one. We don't usually do long ones, but one of the things that we talked about in the million things that I talked about in that podcast with Jen is I was trying to be Jen and I was trying to emulate how Jen talks, which isn't how I talk and it isn't how I do things. And finding my own voice in the business was really important. And that is something that we're going kind of deep on with Sarah today, but we're talking about what you actually say in your business to attract potential clients. I loved this conversation, and it was born out of us attending the How To Summit, which we did last September, and we are going to be attending it again. I'm going to be speaking. I'm so excited about it. So I would love to see people at the How To Summit. But some of the things that came out of the summit are, and by the way, this is exactly what's supposed to happen at a business event. Some of the things make you go deep and really think about bigger things or hard things to think about. And that's how this conversation started, is Sarah had a takeaway that she was frustrated about something that she heard and kept hearing, and she wanted to talk about it. So anyway, I'm going to stop yapping and just let you listen to our conversation, but just wanted to give you a little bit of that headline of we want you to be really you in your business. And we're going to be talking more about that in the upcoming weeks. Okay, so let's get started. Sarah has been on the podcast before. She is one of our mentors in our Inspired Organizer program. So she spends every day not only working with clients, but also working with organizing, our wonderful organizing community, and cheerleading and motivating and coaching and all of that stuff. But I wanted to have her on the podcast because you made a post on our private coaching group, and I'm just going to read it because I think it's really important, and then I want to talk about it. So you said clients need to hear about you and your uniqueness. They need to hear your story, why you do what you do, why you're different from other organizers. Not everybody wants to hire the type A minimalist organizer who's been organizing since they were in diapers. A lot of clients are looking for organizers who have had firsthand experience with hoarding, chronic disorganization, downsizing, relocating, therapy, recovery, blending families, aging parents, losing loved ones, being diagnosed late in life with ADHD or autism, even something like rebuilding after a fire or designing your own kitchen or closets. This is what makes you unique and knowledgeable. Share with others what you have gone through, what you've learned along the way, and find ways to set yourself apart from the rest of the pack. Professional organizers are personal trainers for your home and closet. I, for one, would look for a personal trainer who's like me and has overcome some of the same struggles, so I know they know how to help me where I am. But it doesn't just have to be struggles. People want to know what your interests and hobbies are, what your goals in life are, what you studied in school, even if it doesn't feel relevant to organizing. By the way, I know someone who's like a literal rocket scientist who also organizes, and it's really interesting.
Yeah, that is.
It is. They really want to know who you are. They want to connect with you in some way before they invite you into their home. And this is the good one. The biggest takeaway. If you love to organize garages and dirty spaces, then get out there and advertise that, because so many organizers last week say they hate organizing garages, and it's a massive market that needs to be taken care of. So I just loved this entire thing, and I want to talk to you about it.
Feels like such a rant, but
No, it wasn't a rant at all. So tell me a little bit about what inspired, what made you go, I gotta put this out here, because I agree with every word you said.
Yep. So I was sitting there probably on day 2. So day 1 was just like half a day, and day 2 was our full day. And Literally at the beginning of day 2, I had already heard for the 5th or 6th time, "Oh, it's a room full of type A ladies, a room full of moms." And I'm just like, "Can you stop putting us all in the same box?" It just really was like, I'm not type A. I'm not a mom. I'm not connecting with that. But I'm not denying that that is probably the majority of the ladies in the room right now. So I was just sat there thinking, if I'm feeling this way, as an organizer, there has to be so many people out there who want to hire us, but are just like, I don't want the ladies from the home edit. I don't want Marie Kondo. I don't want somebody who's just going to come in and boss me around and tell me you have to get rid of everything if you want to be happy. And then I was just also thinking like my own story and why I became an organizer. And I'm just like, well, hell, that's not even why I became an organizer. And I have just felt myself. I've been organizing for a little over 9 years, and I've kind of always felt like I was like the odd person out, not like everybody else, because everybody always connected on that. Oh my God, I've been organizing since I was a little kid and putting my blocks in a row. And I'm just like, yeah, my house, my room was a complete disaster. I have not been organizing since I was a kid. It took me until I was in my 20s until I really realized, like, oh, if I want to be happy in my house, then I got to start organizing crap.
I was
So
42. So there you go.
yeah, see,
Yeah.
yeah. And I mean, I do see some other similarities that I have with a lot of these ladies and organizers, but there are just some big things that stand out. And I was just like, I feel like I do attract the clients that I want that are more laid back and don't want me to come in and just tell you, like, this is how you're going to live in your house, because that's just not how I work. I want to be more friendly and approachable, and we're building up a relationship as we're working through everything in your house. And I just kept thinking, like, we aren't talking about this enough, because I feel like it is just expected of us to be type A. It's expected of us to always have an organized home and always be super amazing, organized people. And I just am like, I need to start talking about that more. I
Yeah.
have in the past. I've shared a little bit of my story with my audience, but I just, especially with Instagram, it's really hard when you start comparing yourself to everybody else. And you're just like, well, dang, is there nobody out there like me? And then you got to think, well, clients are thinking the same thing. Well, dang, there's not an organizer out there like me? I don't want a perfect person. I want somebody who was broken and figured it out, and now they're helping other broken people. So that's where I was just like, I had about an 8-hour drive home, and I just
Yeah.
kept thinking about it over and over again. And it's just like, Sarah, you got to stop being so quiet. Like, you feel left out because you're kind of allowing just the type A personalities to take control of what people think organizers are. And I know there are so many people out there who aren't like that. And for example, one of the speakers, she was saying, like, she's not type A, she has ADHD, she doesn't really like to read, just like everything that was the opposite of what almost every single person up there was saying. And I heard so many organizers like, oh my gosh, yes, I connect with that. I connect with that.
Yeah.
And so if there's one lady at this event that is saying stuff that so many of us are connecting with, what if we all just start speaking up more and being like, I'm different. This is how I'm different. And I think that it's going to attract the ideal client for you. And you're not going to be stuck with clients that just aren't, they don't fit your vibe. And yeah, so I just kept thinking, you gotta tell your story. You gotta not just tell your story, like, you gotta talk about you and either how you got here, or like I said, what your interests are, just like anything. Because people aren't wanting to just bring strangers into their homes to go through all their stuff. So even if you don't have so many connections with them, you don't all live the same way, they still be like, oh, wow, you're a real person. You told me your story. You're vulnerable. We want them to be so vulnerable with us. But sometimes we put up these facades and we're just like, we got to be vulnerable with them too, to show them that we're real people. And especially, we know what you're going through if that's something that you've experienced.
I think so. You've said so many things there that I want to get into, but the hot take I have is I suspect that most of the people in that room are also feeling like you are. Well,
Yeah.
I'm not perfect and I'm not this. I might have some of these characteristics, right? But I'm not all of these. I think everybody's probably feeling that way, but everybody feels like, well, I have to project an image. So I think we have this concept that we have to project this image, and it's because of social media that we feel that way.
100%.
I would guarantee that the people on that stage are also, they're dealing with all these things too, but they have created something where they have to project an image. And the person that you're talking about that was like, I'm ADHD and I don't like books, and that was Rhea Safford,
Okay,
who's
that's what I thought.
right. And by the way, on her Instagram last week, this is a Friends reference for anybody who watched Friends, but she goes, I have a Monica closet. And she put on social media, this is my office. I'm paraphrasing, so I'm probably not getting it exactly right, but she's like, it's kind of a mess and I got to clean it up, and I'm a professional organizer, and none of us are perfect. Right.
Yeah.
And so I think being vulnerable and telling people I'm also not perfect, because one of the top questions I get from people is, oh, so your house is perfect.
Oh my
No,
God.
my house isn't perfect. You want to know why? People live there.
Yeah.
And so I guess my only thing to you is, I think lots of people probably felt the same way you did.
Yeah.
And that we're not all one size fits all. We're not all organized since birth. And even people who have been organized since birth, I would argue they have a story too. So we all have got to be better about, we are not all the same person, and differentiate yourself.
That's something I was thinking too. It's even if you have always been an organized kid, or, the job naturally came to you, there is so more to a story. Like, why do you want to do that? Why do you want to help people? A lot of clients also love to know, like, our brains are just different than theirs. It kind of gives them like, okay, so I'm not just a broken person. It's just, no, actually, you're not broken. We're usually the weird ones. We're the ones that like to go into strangers' homes too and put things in order for them.
Right.
So it's always a story. And definitely social media plays such a big thing into this, because we just sit there, we see everybody's highlight reels, like we see everybody's perfect spaces, and then we're just like, dang, I'm not like that, but like you said, just kind of showing your Monica closet, things like that. Something that I have been meaning to talk about more on my social media is, I finally, a couple years ago, broke down and hired a house cleaner. And like, I was so ashamed of that forever. I did not do it for the longest time, because I'm just like, what are people going to think of me? Blah, 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 blah. But then it just came down to it. Honestly, it was for my mental health, because I had no time and I had no energy and no interest in cleaning those spaces. And it's also, what's wrong with that? If I'm asking other people to bring me into their house for help, what's wrong with me saying, I also need help? I'm not perfect. And look at my house. It's all clean now.
And if we are asking people to pay us a lot of money to come into their house and fix their problems, we have to be willing to be able to say, I also need some help. And I guess what? I'm not a house cleaner. I'm in fact very poor at that. So I would like to find someone who's really good at it. It's like my client yesterday, we were in her basement and she had made it sound like this was, some sort of like massive explosion had gone off and it was the worst nightmare that she'd ever seen in her entire life. And I go downstairs and in my head, I'm like, oh, this will take me like 3 hours, whatever.
Yeah.
And I was like, nope, we've got this handled. It's really no problem. She goes, I don't understand how you can see a path out of this. And I'm like, but that's my job. In the same way, a house cleaner, I don't understand how house cleaners know what they need to do, but they're really good at it. So why would I not support their small business and get something for myself in return?
They're so good. They're so fast.
Yes.
Like, it helps me in so many ways. I love coming home and seeing my kitchen like sparkly clean.
Yes.
Because I could never do that. I am so I'd rather not. So
right.
Yeah.
Well, so this is something that I talk about all the time when we're talking about business building in Inspired Organizer. And I feel it I feel it so deeply, as you have got to tell people who you are, whatever that looks like, because it is such a personal service that we give to people, and they have to want to say, I want to spend time with you. And this is a person, I'm not saying that you have to be best friends with me after we're done, but you have to want to spend time with me, because we are going to be doing a lot of things in your house. Even for someone like my client yesterday, I'm really pretty much doing all the work for her.
Yeah.
I still spent an hour with her yesterday figuring out what she needed. We still chatted. We chatted about a lot of like pretty deep stuff. And you showing your personality is really a big deal for clients hiring you.
Yep. 100%. And I have more clients now that are wanting us to do the majority of the work while they're just gone. But still, like you said, we are still talking at the beginning of the session, or we're texting all throughout the session. We're texting afterwards. There is still relationship there, even if you're not working with them one-on-one the whole time. And they're more than likely still picking you out because of you. They're not just going to bring in some random person into their home. I just can't stress this enough. Like, we are literally going through people's underwear drawers. Like,
Literally.
this is not a
Yes.
light decision for people to make.
Yeah.
So the more you put out there of yourself, then the more they're going to feel comfortable, connected. Something else I was thinking about the other day is, even if we're not talking to prospective leads on things like social media, if we're making connections with somebody else, they're going to refer us. If I'm chatting with somebody about, I love hiking nearby, and a lot of people are relocating here, they're like, wow, where are all these great hiking trails? So I'm sharing that. They might not hire me, but if they have a friend or a relative, they're just like, oh, I need help. I'm like, you know what? I got this great organizer I've been chatting with. Like, things like that. It might seem so small to you, or just like a lot of people like, ugh, social media, I don't want to do that. But it is really an easy place to make connections and to find referrals from people.
Absolutely. We did a podcast a few months ago about being 5 Mile famous in your community. And that's all about, and we have a couple organizers in our group that have done very well being 5 Mile famous, where you're recommending things to people, and whether that is a hiking trail or a plumber, you are really showing that you are the local expert. And then that starts to get paid back the other direction as well.
Yeah. And I will say, like, for me, I pretty much have been born and raised in this area. You're an expert on this area.
Yes.
Like, if you have lived anywhere and you pay attention to things and you keep track of things like people's restaurants or new restaurants, other small businesses, anything like that, people are going to naturally gravitate to you and just be like, I know you've lived here your whole life. What would you recommend? So your conversations don't always have to be organizing related to be able to make these connections, but it still is another way to make yourself stand out and seem more like a human being and not just a company, a business.
I also think that showing your personality, it's not just about, hey, I'm going to be really XYZ when I come to here. I'm going to be calm, or I'm going to be fun, or I'm going to be whatever. It's really about showing that you are more than just organizing too.
Yeah. Yeah.
We are whole people. And so whatever that story is, by the way, you might attract people because you are not a mom, and because you understand that, hey, I understand that life can be really chaotic if you don't have kids. By the way, if you have clients that do have kids, it doesn't matter that you're not a mom, because you still have expertise to give them.
Yep.
It's just, but telling your story can connect you with people. And by the way, whatever that story is. So if you were like Sarah and myself, trash pandas before you became professional organizers, freaking tell that story, because I would tell you the number of people that love that I tell that story. On the flip side, there are probably people that are like, no, I really need someone who has been organized since birth. That's the person for me. Cool. I might not be the person for you, but telling those stories is going to connect you with your ideal client every time.
Yep. And that really reminds me that I personally do not favor the clients that want me to come in and boss them around and tell them how to live their life.
I don't either.
And I am okay that there are people out there, because I know there are organizers out there that love to do that, and they love to do that, and that client needs that, and that's like a match made in heaven. And that's why I want to be able to tell more about me, so these people know not necessarily to contact me, because although we could work together and have great results, I'm not going to be exactly what you're looking for, and you might be more frustrated with that. And it's like, well, your frustration is not going to make me change who I am and start bossing you around. That's just not me. I'm sorry.
Well, but I think that leads into something, though. And I know that this is a hard thing, I think, especially when you're a little newer, but I think it can plague all of us, no matter how long we've been in it, is trying to be everything to everyone. We often think, well, if I tell people that I used to be messy, or if I tell people I've been organized since birth, or if I tell people I'm going to alienate these people who are potential clients. We have this idea that 2,000 people are out there searching for us, and we have to say the exact right thing to get them in. you can't be everything to everyone. So you can't be the bossy organizer, but also the organizer who, you know, is just going to be live and let live. You have to know who you are.
Yeah.
And that confidence and knowing who you are is going to attract people to you.
Yeah. And it might be trial and error to get to that point. I know I had some clients, once I got in their home, they're just like, change my life completely. Tell me how to live my life. And I'm like, oh, like in the beginning, you try, like you say, you try to be everything for everybody. And then you realize I don't want to, that's exhausting. They'd be more beneficial with somebody else. And there have been times where somebody's reached out and I just refer them to somebody else that I knew was a better connection.
Yeah.
Like we all want to pay the bills. We all want to make some money, but I am past the point of trying to stress myself out or bend myself backwards to try to fit what they need when I know that's not me.
Yeah.
I'd happily pass it off to somebody else and everybody will be happy. It's kind of like a win-win-win for everybody. I don't care I'm passing on a client or money, because you're opening the door, you're allowing other better clients and money to come your way.
Because you do need it to be a good relationship both directions.
Yeah. Yep.
You need them to get what they need, but you also need to make sure that you are able to provide what they're looking for. So I'm an organizer. Give me psychology all day long. Give me your compulsive shoppers. Give me your people who cannot, you know, when I go to their house, everything we've done last time is undone. I want those people because that interests me.
Yep.
And creating change in people interests me. But what I just described to you might be your worst nightmare. Cool. Know yourself and know that that doesn't work for me. And that is okay too. And then have a referral network of other organizers in your area that you can say, I have the perfect person for you.
Yep. And that's exactly how you should frame it too. Like I never frame it as, I'm sorry, we can't do this for you. It's always, I have a connection with somebody else. They sound like they'd be amazing. This is what they specialize in. This is how they could help you. Like I never try to make it anything negative, because I have had clients who are much more sensitive or leads that are much more sensitive. And they're just like, are you just trying to push me off? And I'm just like, I had to reassure them. No, I swear, like you wanted, specifically this lady wanted a DIY plan. And at the time I was not offering it. I'm like, no, this has nothing to do with you. This is all me. This is not a service I offer. Here is somebody who offers it. They're amazing. They have amazing rates. This would be a perfect connection for you guys.
I did it the other day. I had a client that, you know, just based on, she had sent me some photos and I had a great conversation with her, but just based on, I know that I'm not the right person for her because she needs a team of people that can come in and handle this. And I'm going to be able to, I always say it's throwing a deck chair off the Titanic. I'm going to be throwing a deck chair off the Titanic versus someone that can come in with a team and really make meaningful change for her. And it's a hard conversation because you don't want the person to feel badly because they almost always go, oh, you don't want me. No, I would love to work with you, but I also like you enough from our one phone call to know I want to give you a solution that's better than the solution I can give you.
Oh, yeah. It's such a level of respect. I respect you more than the check that you're going to write me. I respect you as a person and what your needs actually are.
Yeah. Also, her house was really far away from mine. So she also needed someone,
another one,
frankly, who was a lot closer to her than I am. So,
yeah.
have you come to this realization recently? Because you've been organizing for a long time. Is this a realization that you've had recently, or is it something that you're like, no, I've always known that I need to set myself apart?
It's, you know, when you realize things, but you're just too scared to do it. That's what it's been.
Yeah.
I do remember back in 2019, I had a friend approach me when I shared her my backstory about my life before an organizer. And I want to tell your story. And I was like, are you sure? I don't know about that. Like I was so freaking scared, but she basically said she had been looking for a project to do. She loves making videos. And she's seriously, I heard your story. You need to tell people this. And I didn't want to. I was so scared because like I said, I had to be vulnerable. I had these pictures from my room when I was a kid and it was just a disaster. And I've kept them because it's just kind of like my inspiration. But she's just like, you gotta tell your story. So I did. And it felt so therapeutic. And honestly, I don't talk about it much because it still is just, it's so scary and embarrassing. So there's like that level of it. I know I need to tell it and I have told it before, but I compare myself like any other human. I sit on social media and I compare myself to what I feel like is the majority. And I just feel like I feel shame and embarrassed. Oh, everybody only wants to hear from the people who are super organized and all of this. And that's what's entertaining for people and blah, 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 blah. Just all the stupid like stories I tell myself that just basically keep me where I am and not move forward in any way. So it's the whole like I've known for a long time, but also I'm scared. And I felt like people won't want to hear it. People won't want to care, but that's just silly. Not just, okay, silly is a nice way to put it. That's just stupid. To keep myself in this like tiny hole that I put myself in because I'm so scared is just like such self-sabotage and has prevented me from growing. And especially during the pandemic, like I mentioned to you, Melissa, I feel like I just got so quiet because these other voices on social media just got so loud, especially people who started their business during the pandemic. Like it just seems so effortless for them. They're all so perfect. And I'm just like, ugh, I just got quiet and I realized I'm kind of doing other people a disservice, whether it is potential clients or other organizers. Like you mentioned, there are so many other people that feel this way, but we're kind of all a little scared or we're just not loud enough.
Well,
So
and if we want to tell our stories to our clients, we have to tell them to each other.
yeah. Yep.
We have to be vulnerable enough to tell them to each other and say, hey, by the way, I know it looks like I have everything together, but I actually don't.
Yep.
Because that's also all of us, by the way, all
Yeah.
of us. And, we all have moments of whether it's fear or doubt or shame or any of those other things. All of us are going through something. And so sharing those stories with each other so that we as organizers also don't feel alone. We don't want our
Yep.
potential clients to feel like, oh, I'm the only person that doesn't have an organized house. No, girl. So many people don't have organized houses.
Yep.
And also, hey, organizers, not all of us are out here living this most perfect life. We have stress about finding our next client and taking care of the client that we have. And how do I pick the right thing for this client? And how do I, all of the things, we have all of the questions. And so being able to tell each other, oh, hey, yeah, I totally am dealing with that too. We all need a little bit more of that.
Yeah, definitely. When I was on my drive home from a summit, something that came to my mind, it was like people, whether they're other organizers or leads, people are going to get more from your struggles than your successes.
Totally.
And I've always known that. I love hearing people's struggle stories because number one, it teaches me, oh, look out for that. That could happen. And then it teaches me how these people navigated it and managed it, and then what they actually did or tried to do to fix it. And that's what I want to hear. So if I'm just thinking that for like business side of things, it's the same for like household side of things. Her closet, I got a Monica closet. This is my struggle, but this is how I'm going to work through it. And here are some ideas. And this is what I did. And this worked. This didn't work. And it's that right there is a teachable moment. That right there is content. If you want to make it content, like it doesn't even have to be so like put together and stressful. Just show people the real you and talk through it. And that's where like the connections are made.
I think so. I've always used the phrase organizing porn to describe some of the, like the home edit type pictures.
Yeah.
And by the way, I know that there are clients that want that. And I've said a million times, home edit isn't my jam in any way, shape, or form. But if a client wants a home edit pantry, I'll give them a home edit pantry. Right. And I have clients that are like, that's what I want. Cool. I can give that to you. But I think that we've created this deceptive vision of what a house is supposed to look like. And then we've also, to some degree, I think we start to create this deceptive view of, oh, like having an organizing business I'm just killing it all the time. And no, every single one of us have struggles that we're dealing with.
Mm-hmm.
And whether it's getting our shoes put away in our own houses, or whether it's need to make sure that my funnel is all set. And that's why we want people to have a community to go to be vulnerable and say, I'm struggling. How do I work through this? Just like our clients come to us.
Yeah. I think that was a really big thing that I loved about going to the summit was finally meeting the community in person. And the summit was the first event I've ever been to that is for professional organizers.
Yeah.
Besides organizers who have worked with me in my city, I have not met another professional organizer, one that actually runs kind of like a full-time business.
Yeah.
So it's just so nice to be in a room of people that are just like you. And like you said, you hear about struggles, one of the ladies who taught a workshop and talked about how her team is like over 20, 25 people. She said they were struggling this year. Like this year, just the sales were not as great as other years. I'm like, oh my gosh, so many of us are feeling this. And we're like, what am I doing wrong? Why am I
Yeah.
broken? Like, why is this me? But it's not. Once we start talking about these things, we realize the connections. Then you start relieving yourself. Okay, it's not just me. Things
Yeah.
are weird this year. It's happening everywhere. It's happening in other states. It's happening to major organizing companies. It's happening to small organizing companies. Yeah.
Also, so this is really, I think this is really important too. I talked to someone afterward who, what this is all a part of every single thing we're talking about. So she was saying, well, I'm not as successful, or I'm not as good of an organizer because I don't have a team. Everybody has a team except for me. And I'm like, no, they don't, including me. So I was like, no, I think that there is a misconception that, you know, whether it's different parts of your organizing business. So if you are doing organizing as a side hustle, passion project, or part-time, you know, you have a full-time job and organizing is your part-time job. You're not less of an entrepreneur than those of us who do it full-time. We have different needs for our lives and our businesses. In the same way that me as a solo organizer, I'm not lesser than someone that has a team of 20. As someone that has a team of 20 has different challenges and problems than I do. But it doesn't mean that you are not running a business in the same way. You're just running a different business.
Yeah.
So I think that there's a ton of comparisonitis, not just on social media of, you know, oh, look at this project or whatever. I'm not doing that, therefore I'm less. I think there's a lot of comparisonitis of, oh, well, I guess I really need a team. I don't want to do a team, but I guess I need one.
Yeah.
No, you don't.
Yeah.
Like, or if you want to build a team and you're a solo organizer, girl, go out and do it. Go build a
Yeah.
team of 20 people. There are so many ways to do this business, and we can't say there's a one size fits all, because there simply isn't.
Yeah. Yeah. And your success lies in where you want your success to be.
Yeah.
If you don't want a team because there's so much more you have to handle and navigate with that, then you're successful without it. You're not a failed organizer. You're not any less than any of us. Because a lot of us, I mean, having a team is not the greatest thing in the world for a lot of us. A lot of us don't want to manage other people. So to compare yourself to somebody else who's completely on the opposite side of the end of you, you're just doing yourself a disservice. But we all do it too.
We
So it's like,
all
I'm
do
not
it.
saying, like, I'm talking about from experience. I have had to, this is how I fix myself. I unfollow or I mute the people that I compare myself to too much.
Yeah.
Because it's just, these people are amazing people. They have done nothing wrong. This is a me issue. And either I'll work through this eventually, or I probably won't, because you're just like where I want to be. And that just drives me crazy.
Right.
So it's like, I'm speaking from experience. This is something, it's comparison is like our kryptonite. It's just,
Yeah.
oh, it's going to kill us. It's going to kill us.
And I guarantee the person you're comparing yourself to has all sorts of, they're comparing themselves
100%.
against
Yeah.
someone else too. So the
Yeah.
person that you are using as your yardstick of I'm not good enough, I guarantee freaking T that they have someone else who they're like, well, I'm not as good as blah. And then that
Yep.
person has someone that they're not as good as blah. We
Yep.
all do it. And it's a recipe for, I don't know, driving ourselves crazy. And I love
Mhm.
the unfollow, mute. It's not personal. It's just, this isn't good for me to be looking at.
Yeah.
And I have had organizers that I have told flat out, please get off of social media entirely,
Yeah.
or follow no one, or
Mhm.
whatever you need to do, but it's not healthy for you. And what I see is, and it's not just social media, I don't mean to constantly like harp on social media, but it's the easiest place to see all of this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whatever you are doing in your business that is preventing you or is creating these blocks, get rid of the blocks. In the same way that we would tell a client, well, the first thing we need to do is get rid of all of your empty cardboard. Like, whatever you need to do to clear out that space, because I guarantee the more you are comparing yourself against someone, you're taking time away from building the business that you could
Yeah.
have. So an hour that you spend comparing yourself to this imaginary success of this person that you barely know is an hour that you could have spent working on your SEO or contacting prior clients or any of the other 100 things that we tell people to do.
Yep. And I feel like once you become more comfortable with who you are, and once you start sharing more of yourself, you do start comparing yourself less and less. Or if you catch yourself comparing yourself again, like you're just like, well, why am I doing that? This person has a completely different personality than me. They have completely different values than me. I'm speaking for personal experience. There's a competitor in my area, and we did not have a good beginning. So I've always compared myself to her because she just, but she's completely different. And I have referred other people to her. And it's just once you grow more and work through these things, the bitterness starts to go away. Because why? Like we've said, it's not about competition. There is so many of us, and there are so many hundreds, thousands, millions of people in this world who need organizers.
Yes.
Like we can't be fighting each other or internally fighting each other. Like we just got to realize we're all different for a reason. Just like there's a million restaurants out there.
Yes.
Not everybody wants McDonald's. Most people will never go to McDonald's.
Right.
But yeah, something else I was going to say was social media, although we have kind of harped on it a little bit because it's it can easily be
Sorry, Instagram. We're really ripping on you today.
It can very easily be a toxic place for us, but also I have already felt the shift in me from the summit that's not where I'm going to compare myself. That's where I'm going to share who I am, which is what it's meant for.
Yeah.
That's where I'm going to connect more with people and stop spending my time flipping through other people's stories and be like, oh, I wish I had this. I wish I had that. And then just no, cut that crap. Make your own stories, make your own posts, things like that. It is one of the easiest and most beneficial places to connect with people because it's so casual. And I hear a lot of organizers say, well, I put stuff like that in the About Me section of my website. And I'm just like,
no, girl.
Right? Like the majority of people are not reading that. It's great to have it, but it's kind of, I see it as your website is to be more professional. You can obviously still put all that stuff, but when you want to be casual and connect with people, that's when you go to social media.
Yes.
And I feel like that also, to me, takes a lot of weight and pressure off of what social media should be, because it's just post what you want. I still post what I want, but I make it branded with all my cute brand colors. And I keep it consistent how I want. But it's just that is the easiest and best place to connect and share your story and be vulnerable and meet people. And yeah, so if you put a lot of emphasis on your website about that, just kind of recycle that content and take it over to social media and expand more on it.
Well, and I'm glad we're talking about this because we have really ripped on social media, but I do want to tell you my major takeaway, one of my major takeaways after I left the summit was I'm going to do more social media. And this is where I'm going from is I realized there were a lot of people in that room that I had never met before, right? Some of whom I know from Inspired Organizer. So I like know them, but I met them in person, but some people I had never heard of before. I was in the airport waiting for my flight with 3 women that were at the summit that I had not met there. We had the best conversation, ended up on a flight with one of them, and we talked the entire flight. I love her, Courtney, shouting you out. But the point was, I was like, oh my gosh, I have all these people, these lovely people that I have never met before, and I want to connect with them more. And social media is the easiest way to do that because that's, Courtney lives in Tennessee. I'm not going to Tennessee very often, and she's not coming to Minnesota very often. So that was my major takeaway. But I love what you're saying is use it as a platform to show who you are. I'm not saying that you can't show the beautiful pictures of the spaces that you've done or, give people that inspiration that they need. But as an example, this is how I know how to be me, right? Like, I'm not saying it works for everyone. What I do is not going to work for Sarah and vice versa. But one of my social media posts is a card that I found once that said, I want my house to be tidy enough so that if someone drops by unexpectedly, it doesn't look like we're 6 days into battling a poltergeist. Okay. That's the kind of content you're going to get on Home by 11, because that's me. I do want to be honest about, hey, I understand it's hard to keep a house organized. Let me help you dial down the chaos a little bit, and let me help give you some systems. That's what works for me, and that's authentic to who I am. It wouldn't be authentic for me to all of a sudden be showing you a bunch of home edit pictures of a beautiful pantry. That's just not me.
Yep. That's so true, because I realize something that people who follow me know is they know I love to be outside, but something that I don't think a lot of people about me know is I am a sentimental person when it comes to objects. I keep mementos. I have keepsakes that are under my bed that I probably will never throw away, but it's like they're packed away. And I've had so many clients come to me and just, am I allowed to keep this? And I'm like, allowed? If you want to
Yeah.
keep this, you can keep this. So I realized the other day, once I got back from the trip, like I had all these things that I bought that somebody might think an organizer would never buy souvenirs or magnets for their fridge. And I'm like, hell, that's a story right there. And I posted that and I had people thank me. Thank you. This is exactly what I needed to hear, which is it's okay if you like something and you want it in your home. Like a professional organizer is telling you, yes, you can keep that
Yes.
in your home. You don't have to throw it away because you haven't used it in 5 years. I'm so over that. It's such a gray area. It's not black or white. So it's just something as simple as that, where it's kind of letting people know what some of your thoughts are about things. I personally hate organizing books by color. That doesn't make sense to me. I love it when clients hire me to organize their library literally by category and author. That brings me so much joy. I wanted to be a librarian as a kid. So that's my type of organizing. So little things like that, where you don't necessarily have to be bashing on anything else. You can just let people know, hey, this is what I do. That's okay if you want this. It's okay if you want something else. But this is kind of who I am. And it's so casual. I just freaking took a picture and threw it up on the stories. That's there for 24 hours. And I made some more connections with people. Like,
Yeah.
and I wasn't doing it with the goal of just, oh, I'm trying to make connections. It's with the kind of trying to normalize things.
Yes.
Normalizing that I'm an organizer with stuff and you're allowed to have stuff too. And my home is organized with stuff and your home can be organized with stuff too.
Yeah.
So little things like that.
I love the phrase normalize because I think that's what we're trying to get at here more than anything is normalizing that there are a lot of ways to do things, whether that's running an organizing business, whether that is what you're presenting to clients, whether it's how you're running your own life, all of those things. But it's the antithesis of you have to have everything perfect. And there are established rules for how to make everything perfect.
Yeah.
And books are a great example. I'm very much a book person too. And there was a thing years ago because I am in the Marie Kondo universe. There was a quote that was misattributed to her where she says you should only have 30 books, I think, or something.
Yeah.
And she herself has said, I never said that. I don't know where that came from. But people have latched onto that as Marie's going to steal all my books. And she's, no, I want you to keep every book that sparks joy for you.
Yeah.
And same thing, like a client, whether it's tickets to football games or basketball games,
Yeah.
something that we have in our house. Tim keeps every ticket he's ever had to every event.
Yep.
Or whatever it is, like none of us are trying to get rid of all of your stuff. We want to normalize that you can live in an organized home with whatever it is. Are there trade-offs to that? Yeah, sometimes, because sometimes you have clients who are like, but I love everything. And
yeah,
like,
yeah.
I don't have space for it all. We don't have time enough in this podcast to get into all of that, but this is what we're trying to say. Normalizing that it is okay to feel XYZ way, whether it's your client or whether it's you as an organizer.
Yeah. Yeah. And normalize being different. We're doing ourselves a disservice by being quiet because we think everybody's all the same and they're not. It's just, I think we're the quiet ones when you get loud.
Yeah. I don't have a problem. Being loud is not a problem. I've never been accused of having an inside voice. So that's,
oh yeah.
We're talking about metaphorically loud though. So.
Yeah. Yeah.
Have you ever had someone that has hired you? I have had people that have hired me specifically because they cite something that I said, whether it's on my website, mostly on my website. I'm pretty casual on my website in terms of the tone I take. Have you had that experience too?
Yeah, definitely. Because on my website, even if they haven't seen the video, there is literally like one sentence that I grew up with my grandpa who was a hoarder. And people love to hear that because they know I'm not afraid to be around clutter. I knew how to navigate that. Since I lived in it, like I'm not going to come into their home and judge them for what it looks like. And it's just like that little line right there. It just hits so many people. And also a lot of people do contact us because it is a generational thing. And they're just like, well, my parents were messy and my grandparents were messy and I'm just tired of that. So it's a whole breaking the cycle thing. And that is, I think, one thing that really hits with a lot of people.
Yeah. There are things, I've told this story before, but there are a couple of just random things that I've had on my website that people will occasionally reference. And I'm talking, it's buried inside a story, inside of another story and whatever. But the right people are going to peruse all of that and they're going to hear what you say. And it might be just that one sentence that you just threw in there as an afterthought that is what connects with people. And that is really, really important because you
Yeah.
just never know what that little thing is that's going to connect you with people.
Yeah. Another sentence is I used to be a nanny.
Yeah.
And especially moms who need their household managers, they're like, "Oh,
Yeah.
a nanny, she knows her shit. She knows
Yeah.
how to get families in order," which is like where I feel like my love for helping other families really came from.
Yeah.
And that's something. I don't have kids, but does not prevent clients that have a bunch of kids from reaching
Yep.
out. Like we have clients that have 6+ kids, and I love working with them all the same. I mean, your stuff is your stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, that doesn't discredit me from being able to help a mom with kids just because I don't have kids. So
It absolutely
yeah.
does not. I actually had this conversation with someone, I think I talked about it on the podcast, but I had a conversation with someone in our Inspired Organizer group who's, I am not a mom and I am about to have a mom client and I feel like I can't serve her and whatever. I was like, stuff is stuff. And I was like, I am a mom, but I'm not a mom of little kids. And so I've had clients that, you know, if you have really, really little kids, that's not the stage of life I'm in. I have forgotten what it's like to have a little kid, right? It doesn't matter. You can help people at any stage. I go, I have a client who's a 70+ year old man. Am I not allowed to serve him because I'm not a 70+-year-old man? No.
Yeah.
We are able to serve a lot of different clients. And I told this person, I go, you not being a mom actually might be a big selling point.
Yeah.
It actually might be better because you might have views, whereas I'm like, oh, well, my kids are little XYZ. Please don't pigeonhole yourself into I'm not this, therefore I can't help this person. I think it especially comes with the mom thing, and that's unfortunate. That's a whole other podcast, but like wherever you are, you can help people in a lot of different stations of their life.
I have a very funny story that actually goes with that. A repeat client of mine called and she's, I'm going to have a baby. I'm like, congratulations. Can you design my nursery and put everything on the registry for me? And I'm like, I mean, that sounds so much fun. So I did, and it was so much fun. But here I am. I've never designed a nursery or fully put together a registry. She paid my rates. I loved it. She had us come in after her baby shower and put her whole nursery together. And it's just, I don't think she thought twice about the fact that I'm not a mom. She's a great organizer and knows her stuff. I'm going to bring her in because I don't have time and I don't know how to do this.
Right.
And it was like, yeah, just because you're not this doesn't mean you can't help with that.
Yeah. This is completely off topic, but I want to talk about that a little bit. This is a big hot button for me, is like saying yes to things and figuring out how to do it later. I love that you're just like, yeah, sure, I'll do that, even though you've never done it before. And even though, first, I hope you got to go to the store with the actual scan gun.
I did it online, but it still was fun for me.
Going to the store with the scan gun is so fun.
I got to take her like 3 Pinterest pictures and basically create everything for that. And there was not a single thing that she did not want or disagreed with what I picked out. And I'm like,
love it.
Oh yeah, that was so fun.
Dude, you got paid to Pinterest and shop. Think about that.
Yes, at home. Yeah.
But the point I want to make is, and this is completely off the subject of everything else we're talking about, sort of, but is saying yes to things because you just never know what kind of direction it can take you in. And there are a lot of different things you can do in organizing that aren't just, I'm going to decant some cereal into a container, like a lot of things.
Yep. And there are certain things that you get ideas that people ask you to do, you're just like, oh no, and go with your gut on that. But this one felt so like, what am I going to lose if I put a couple hours into this and just be like, listen, I can't do this. But honestly, I can't not online shop. That's so easy. So once I got started to it, I'm like, there's nothing wrong with this. So yeah, it's little things that you just might need to try.
Is there anything else that you took away from the summit that, like, this is the thing I think that caused you to think the most, but is there anything else you took away that you want to talk about?
Your clients are not going to care about your followers. They're not going to care about the number of followers you have. If you have, I mean, you don't even have to have social media. So many people don't have social media, but if you have a well put together website, if it's informative, if you're approachable, you seem knowledgeable, clients want that. Yeah. Not everybody is going to go to Instagram and just be like, oh my gosh, this person has 20,000 followers. That's who I want to hire. Yeah. A lot of people, that is intimidating to them anyways, or they might see how you use social media in clients' homes and just be like, that's not for me. Right. So that's another big thing with comparison, is just like the numbers and the metrics of social media. just because it looks fancy to us, it's not always going to look fancy to them.
Yeah. I love that. Mine was that community is really important, and that it's not just like a trait phrase.
Yeah.
You need to find, whether it's one organizing bestie or a group of organizing besties, like you need people around you, and seeing people in person was so great because it's just not the same behind a screen.
Yeah.
But finding people that you can connect with and that you can, so if you're afraid to be vulnerable on a bigger stage, that's fine. Find someone you can be vulnerable with on a smaller stage, because you need to know that you're not alone in whatever. And by the way, you also need someone to celebrate your successes with, because we're women. And I think a lot of times we don't want to shout from the rooftops of, hey, I just got a 50-hour client, or I just had I just had my month that blew out all my other months, or I had my first 5-figure month, or whatever. You've got to find people that you can celebrate things with too.
Yeah. And the big one is in person. If you can find a community or people, friends, whatever, that you can eventually meet in person.
Yep.
Oh my God, it's so different.
It is. It's great.
Here I was thinking nothing could get better from our Inspired Organizer group until I actually got to meet people in person.
I know.
Oh my gosh, this changes everything. Now I want to have meetups like all the time.
I know.
It's different talking to your friends or your partner's spouses about business things. They can celebrate with you, but also I do not tell my husband about the things that sucks, because then he gets really defensive and who's messing with you? And I'm like, chill,
right.
chill. I just need somebody to vent with. I need a friend who gets it. So yeah, community. Yeah. Like you said, not just you hear that all the time, community, but you really got to find people that you connect with, that you can talk with, complain with, all of that.
I've said it before, and my husband is so patient and he's so kind, and he will listen to any story that I have, even if if I have to explain like 200 extra things, he like at least pretends like he's not bored. But it is different to be able to just go to someone. I could go to Sarah right now and be like, you wouldn't believe what happened to me yesterday in this pantry.
And I'd be like, spill it.
Yeah. Or, oh, I had 3 bags of just expired spices yesterday. And she'd be like, oh my gosh, well, once I had 4. And my husband would be like, oh, why did they have so many spices? No, never mind.
Yeah, they just don't get it.
Just never mind.
Yeah.
Well, I really appreciate you being vulnerable and putting this out there, because I think that you are probably, what you will probably find out is that you are speaking for a lot of people. But
Yeah.
I know that speaking up is really important, and I appreciate it. So
yeah, it's hard. It's scary, but it's like our voice is one of our most powerful things. We got to use it. Like I've seen other people say, oh, I just feel so out of place. I'm like, oh, me too, but I never said anything. So yeah, you just got to start strength in numbers. We will overcome this.
That's right.
More power to us.
For sure. I do want to talk about, this is something totally different, and we've talked about it on the podcast before, but I want to remind people, you have a side hustle to your organizing business.
Yes.
I mean, I like the phrase side hustle. I've used passion project before, and I like that one too. But anyway, it's a companion business. That's what we're call it. Tidy Stock. Can you tell us a little bit more about Tidy Stock? Because I love it. And I'm not just saying that because you're my friend and because you're on this podcast. I love it.
Well, that's so great to hear, because, it did start off as a passion project and I was scared shitless to do it. But basically, a couple years ago during the pandemic, I started creating stock photos for professional organizers, because that's something I've always been like, where are photos for us? You go and Google like organized closet, and it gives you either a completely messy closet, which is not a good stock photo, or it gives you a closet that just looks so fake and IA generated.
Yeah.
So yeah, during the pandemic, I have a really great friend who always took all my brand photography, and I'm like, would you be interested in doing stock photos? And her like style is amazing and bright and airy and clean. I'm like, that's exactly what I'm looking for. So we teamed up and started Tidy Stock Photography. And we haven't done a shoot in probably over a year, but that's something that I want to change. Something that also like kind of refueled me was going to the summit and be like, all right, this is a room of almost 300 organizers.
Yeah.
Like I'm gonna start making some stock photos for them. So yeah, that's a big thing that I love, that it just kind of like makes me so happy to know that I'm providing something for people like me and other organizers. And I love getting the messages like, oh my God, these are amazing. They're exactly what I've been looking for. I love the repeat customers. It just makes me so happy. And it's a different type of, I mean, it's a sale rather than a service with professional organizing. So it just kind of like fills my bucket in other ways that organizing wasn't filling my bucket. And I'm working with more of my peers in that sense, providing something for them.
What I love is I'm seeing so many more people that are realizing that I have organizing, and I love that. I have other passions that I am also looking at. I have these other interesting things that I want to pursue that are organizing adjacent, but that they're serving a need in the market. And Tidy Stock definitely does. So I buy them. By the way, I'm a customer. I actually pay for them. And what I do is I will take a package, and then I will just create some content out of it. I have created blogs out of it. I've created a lot of stuff, and it helps, at least for me, it's like a creativity starter.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm able to take one of your photos and then say, oh, I can go talk about blah, blah, blah. And then I have content, and I support another small business, and they're beautiful photos and all of the things. So
Great. Yeah, that's exactly what I wanted. It's not just for your website, it's for social media or your blogs, it's for fillers. It can work alongside with what you're already posting. And they're not created to make it seem like this is your work and you're lying to your clients.
right.
Like
Yes.
it's stock photos. You can tell it's a stock photo because it's curated and it's edited, it's clean, it's like sort of perfect, but it's not too perfect.
Right.
And yeah, I think some people don't realize is how helpful they are for blog posts when you
Yes.
already have all the text and you're just like, well, what do I do now? Just get a bundle and fill it with photos. And it takes your blog posts and all your marketing just like this whole new level, having these clean, crisp images,
Yep.
especially if they're all cohesive. Like it kind of tells a little bit of a story.
For
So
sure. Yeah, I used a package during back to school time where I did a bunch of posts on back to school stuff, and it made it so much easier because it made me have to be less creative, I think is what I'm
yeah.
trying to say.
Yeah. It's really great when you have the ideas for what you want to say, but
Yeah.
then you need a visual to go along with it. And that's kind of how it works on so much online is you kind of need a visual with what you're saying. Otherwise you're going to lose people's
Yes.
interest. You got to reel them in somehow. So yeah.
Exactly. But yeah, so we're going to put the link in your profile because I do want people to go and see what you're doing. And again, let's remind ourselves we can support other people's small businesses.
Oh,
And
100%. I love going to other organizers' websites and seeing what they have, especially if they
yeah,
have templates or anything. I'm like, purchase. You made
yeah,
my life easier. And I know if it's an organizer, it's going to be done right.
for
we,
sure.
we usually follow things through, see things through, make it look really, really good. So yeah, it's
Yeah.
like a whole different level.
There's so much noise online there are a billion things that you can buy online. And I would rather go to someone who knows exactly what my struggles are and exactly what. And by the way, you should be looking for that. If you're listening to this podcast and you are looking for whether it's a business coach or photos or templates or whatever, think about what is the actual expertise of the person that is trying to sell you this thing.
Yeah.
And I'd rather have a professional organizer who knows what kind of photos I need or templates or coaching or anything else. So that's my little plug of the day. Sarah, thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate all of your wisdom and insight, and our inspired organizers are lucky to be able to hear from you all the time. So thank you for
Thank you
that.
for having me again and allowing me to be a big part of the Inspired Organizer group. And
Yeah.
I've always said a million times, I don't know where I would be without Pro Organizer Studio and Inspired Organizer and all of that. If you need teaching and you need community and you need direction, and if you need anything, like honestly, Pro Organizer Studio kind of gives it to you in some form or another.
I also do not know where I would be.
Yeah.
I mean, like we all need each other, right? And
Yeah.
it's an awesome group of women. So we're lucky to be there. So